Welcome to Telling the Tale. It's the podcast where we will talk about every single Telltale video game released under that company's existence, which in some ways continues into today. Today we're going to talk about a really special Telltale Games game, but of course, in order to jump into that, I need to bring on my trusty, forever co-host, Dustin Cornelius Jackson.
Objection, Mitchell, you're leading the podcast.
Oh, you got me. Now I have to not say what I've said, even though the listener will remember that I said it.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I'm sure you can tell, based on that very funny courtroom-related humor that Dustin? Is it Dustin?
We can go with Dustin.
Okay, yeah, that Dustin just brought up. We have just played Law and Order Legacies. All 7 episodes. Dustin, can you believe we're saying that? I thought for a long time we would never say that on this show.
It really was, like, the big one.
It's
like,
the
just
big
in
one.
Terms of how difficult it is to get it, how much of a commitment it was to play through all of these. Do you want to tell our audience what we did in case they didn't join us on that lovely, fateful day?
Sure. Yeah, let's explain what we did. So, well, that might be two things. So let me start at the very beginning. We had this podcast. We knew that there were going to be mini games that were difficult to obtain, and even if we could get a hold of a physical copy, running them somehow might be a problem with old hardware technology requirements. It was really just like a trial to get through all of the Telltale games that were out there. Now,
right.
The current Telltale has put up on Steam at the very least, and some console efforts, games like Wallace and Gromit Grand Adventures.
And
that's a weird one to blank on. Okay, sorry. No, there are others. The Tales of Monkey Island, Tales from the Borderlands, A Wolf Among Us, The Wolf Among Us, A Wolf Among Us. It's the, right?
yeah, the as in the specific one.
I think I'm frazzled because of how much video game we played 2 days ago.
Yeah, we're a little mixed up, a little frazzled.
Yeah, I was telling Dustin before the recording started that my energy is back, but now I'm realizing that maybe my faculties aren't.
One step at a time.
Anyway, the company currently known as Telltale Games, they're selling a lot of Telltale games, but not all of them. They did not get the rights to all of them. Now, the 2 big ones, Sam & Max and The Walking Dead, now they each went to another company. Sam & Max went to Skunk Ape, which is made of a bunch of old Telltale people, and The Walking Dead went to the Walking Dead IP holder. So those games are taken care of as well. The Walking Dead is just currently being sold on basically every console, and Sam & Max is getting remasters, where the remasters are going to be sold on basically every console. Those are taken care of. What we're like left behind, beyond all of those things, were the really old stuff like Bone and the weirdly high license stuff like Poker Night at the Inventory, where there's 1,000 licenses touching this game. It would be impossible to put it back up for sale. I happen to own both instances of Bone. You owned both Poker Night at the Inventory games.
Yeah.
Minecraft, for some reason, Microsoft has not put it back up. I assume Microsoft now owns the game, but it's not for sale. So we had to get physical copies of those. Now, there were physical copies of those games in existence, so that worked out.
Yeah. It was fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
The real hard ones were the CSI games, which we needed to go back to the PlayStation 2 and Wii in order to get... like physical copies, basically, and ran those, basically. And Law and Order Legacies. Now, Law and Order Legacies did not come out for consoles. It came out for PC, and it came out for iOS. This was the height of Telltale really pushing their adventure games on iPad, which was a big
Right.
moment.
Yeah, we all remember where we were.
We all remember where we were when Telltale was trying to push their adventure games on iPad. I think they had an exclusivity deal with Apple for a certain amount of time before they were even bringing it to other things.
Right. That sounds right.
Yeah, but because this game wasn't initially very successful, in my understanding, I don't think we'll ever know full sales numbers. They didn't bring this one to consoles later. They just kind of kept it on iOS and PC. And then, in 2015, that's 2015, only 4 years after it originally came out, not even related to the company going bankrupt, they chose to delist it.
Isn't that fucked up?
It's a little fucky. It's a little fucky for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, I know that they need to pay some money to Law and Order people, probably, right?
Right.
But I don't know if it's... Well, I assume it's not a royalty per, unit sold, because if it was a royalty per unit sold, they would just keep it on the market.
Yeah.
And then they would just... If they sold one copy, they're like, okay, go mail them their 40 cents. But... Yeah, they just pulled it. So I assume there was like some subscription to the license that they were not affording in just having the game out there. It wasn't selling any copies. So they pulled it, and pirates didn't care about it. Video game piracy is rampant, and it seems like anything anywhere is just on, like, it's online everywhere instantly. This game seems to have never been online everywhere.
No one wanted to make sure people could play it.
Yeah, it's not to say that we would have pirated the game, because we wouldn't say that.
Oh, heaven forbid.
But let's just say we couldn't. It was really not an option.
Right. Yeah. They were making our job very difficult.
Yeah. So there was one person online reselling a seemingly legitimately found Steam key for Law and Order Legacies that they've just been holding on to since at least 2015. Have not been able to sell it. It's just the one. It was the one that existed online. So your favorite podcast host had to drop a little change and purchase the very rare video game. And we have now played all 7 episodes of Law and Order Legacies. Was it worth it? I'm asking. Was it worth it? Please say yes.
It was worth it for me because I didn't pay for it.
Sure. You're really just coasting.
Yeah, you know what? That's fine. Of all the games out there, I think this is the one I'm fine with coasting on.
Yeah, well, in some ways, it's the most important game that we have ever covered on the show.
Name the ways.
You can't play it at home, so we have to play it for you.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, in all the other games, except like maybe some of those CSI games, it was really just impossible to imagine curious people at home figuring out how to play it for themselves. It was possible. It is impossible for this one. I cannot imagine you doing what I did. For, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, that's delisted. But Guardians of the Galaxy, you can find the hard copy for consoles, and it'll work.
Yeah, and it's not even, like, that expensive to get a physical copy of it.
Yeah, some of these are, like... Most of these are around, like, $20, and then some of the slightly more rare ones, they're like, oh no, $40. And trying to scare me.
How condescending. Oh no, get out of here.
So rare. Yeah, I mean, retro video games can go for a lot of money, so that really is not too bad.
Yeah, Banjo Pilot for the Game Boy Advance goes for like $50 now. Can you believe that?
I mean, 50 new games go for 70, so that's like it's still not that crazy, you know?
Right, but it's a Banjo Pilot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's not even Cars.
That's true.
So let's
I
talk
didn't
about
even think
Law
about
and
that.
Order Legacies.
I would love to.
It originally released with its first 2 episodes on December 22nd, 2011. And then episode 3, January 6th, 2011. Then episode 4 is January 20. Episode 5 is February 9. Episode 6 is February 25. And then episode 7 is about a month after that, March 26th. So there wasn't really a stable cadence for these.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like between episodes... So episodes 1 and 2 came out on the same day. Then between episodes 2 and 3, it was 2 weeks. And then 3 and 4 was 2 weeks. 4 and 5 looks like it was closer to like 3 weeks. 5 and 6 was 2.5 weeks. And then 6 and 7 was a month.
Just kind of dropping them whenever they felt like it.
Yeah, that last gap between 6 and 7 makes me wonder, like, how firmly they were holding on by the end. But yeah, this is a 7-episode season. Minecraft Story Mode Season 1 technically had 8 episodes because of the 3 DLC episodes that came out after the season concluded, technically.
Right.
But this is just planned for 7. How do you feel about that?
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of them.
Yeah. It's a lot for... It's a weird choice of IP to get that many episodes. But I guess given how simple the game is, it kind of makes sense.
Well, it doesn't, it doesn't. I will say that 2 of these could have been cut, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk about which 2 as we get there. The designer and writer for the season, like the season planner of this game, was Ryan Kaufman. And Ryan Kaufman's a name that we've seen a bunch all over the place with Telltale.
All over the place.
And Wikipedia has very thankfully given me writer's credits for each episode. So let's really quickly go. Episode 1, Revenge, was written by Ryan Kaufman. Episode 2, Home to Roost, was written by Ari Kaplan and Andy Hartzell. Episode 3, Killer Smart, was written by Ed Quaynell and Ryan Kaufman. Episode 4, Nobody's Child, was written by Andy Hartzell. Episode 5, Ear Witness, was written by Ed Quaynell and Ryan Kaufman. Episode 6, Side Effects, was written by Andy Hartzell. And Episode 7, Resolution, was written by Ryan Kaufman. So there we go. We got a lot of writers. We got a lot of... This is a big effort.
Yeah, I agree. Good job, Ryan Kaufman.
Yeah. So, Dustin.
Hello.
After I do the credits, after I say when the game came out, after I tell the audience what we played, I normally ask you a very specific recurring question, and I'm a little afraid to do it today.
Why? What's the question, Mitchell? You can lay it on me. I don't know why you're so scared. I won't bite.
My question is, what did you think?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we talked about it. Like, even when we were playing, I was like, this could be worse. And, like, I felt like it got better in the second half, even. Not to the point that it's like, I'm not, like, in love with this game, but, you know, for this kind of game, I was expecting way worse. I was expecting, like, maybe a little better than CSI. And to be fair, they are pretty simple. Like, they're not, like, full Telltale games where you go around exploring, picking things up, etc., etc. I'd say gameplay-wise, they're even simpler than CSI in some cases.
Well, CSI is... I would not say CSI is simple. You know, CSI
Right.
had a lot of things we needed to do.
Yeah, a lot of little gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah, we needed to really learn the language of how that series worked by the end of it.
Yeah, we were fluent in CSI by the end.
Yeah, these Law and Order episodes, I should clarify as well. We played them over Twitch stream a couple days ago. Thank you everyone who came by to watch us play that. It lasted 9 hours for the 7 episodes, which is an average of about, it's certainly less than 1.5. It's like 1 and a dozen minutes or so. 1 hour and a dozen minutes. Pretty short episodes.
Yeah.
Each, if you play them one at a time. If you play them all at once, it does take 9 hours, and you'll be a little stumped by the end of it because you spent all of your smart points earlier on.
Yeah, it was getting a little tricky to focus on anything in that last episode.
Yeah. So I think I agree. The game was pretty okay.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not like a game that I would want to come back to very often, if at all. But for like a game I was forced to play for a podcast, I thought it was not bad.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare it to other things that we've played, because the obvious comparison is CSI, and just because they're both crime procedurals does not really mean they did much of the same thing.
Yeah, we were worried at first. I remember when we first started, you were like, "Oh no, it's exactly like CSI."
And it really wasn't. I was jumping the gun. It was not exactly like CSI. It was closer to LA Noire at certain points.
Yeah, that got you really excited.
Yeah, I love LA Noire. It also isn't like LA Noire, though. It just has moments. So here's how it breaks down. Every episode has a detective part. We can call that the order part. And the lawyer part. In the courts, we can call that the law part. Where we're gathering evidence, doing interrogations, issuing, ultimately, an arrest as the detectives. And then we transfer over. And these are all show characters, by the way. So there's people that... Our good friend of the show, Cameron Regal, he was watching the stream. Cameron recognized all these characters.
Good for him. I didn't recognize any because I've never seen it.
Yeah, I did not know any of these characters' names. But you jump from playing as one of the detectives or two of the detectives to being one of the lawyers. And
that's kind of a fun structure they got. Switching like partway through, kind of mix it up.
Yeah, and it simultaneously doesn't do a whole lot with it, and also undoes the entirety of the CSI formula in like one swoop. Because as soon as we were playing as the lawyer, it made me realize like, oh, we could have had some fun with this in CSI, and they didn't want to do that. I guess that's just not how that show works. It's crime scene investigation. That makes sense. Right. As soon as they're in the courts, we say like, okay, maybe they'll go free. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not our job.
That is, we don't care about that. Where in this case, we really are responsible for putting people away. We had some people actually leave the Twitch stream because they're like, I don't like this. And I couldn't blame them. I don't want to put people away. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
You're going downtown, Buster Brown.
Especially because the severity of the crimes in each of these cases wildly different each time. Wild.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of them deserve to be put away, but
sure. Some of them very do.
Yeah.
And then others are like, I don't know.
Could have just slapped this guy on the wrist.
Yeah. So that's one aspect of this game. You're jumping between the detective part and the lawyer part, but the detective part really works like the Walking Dead style games. You're not making choices, but you are just sort of going. You're like sometimes looking for something in the environment, circling it, and then you found it. But other than that, you're just like sort of going through a conversation.
Yeah, it really is like an I Spy game where you just look around at a picture and circle what you need to find.
Yeah, whereas in CSI, we were tasked with like, okay, let's on our own accord choose to go back to this apartment, look around, find a blood spatter, mop it up with a sponge or whatever, test it, see if that blood matches anything. And this is like all player-driven choices that we have to do. And in Law and Order, they're like, you'll get that. You'll get the blood. Don't worry about it. We're on our way to the story. So
yeah, and it just sends you where you need to be at that moment in time. You don't have to worry about knowing where to go if you missed anything. You just do it.
Yeah. This is one of those things where I don't know how our experience doing this for a podcast really translates to the game's quality. Because when we're doing it for the podcast, we're so relieved when the game just sends us along. You know? Whereas,
but
like, if you're playing something, you want a little bit more out of it.
Yeah, exactly. But after so many CSIs, it was very relieving to not have to worry about just any of that stuff.
Yeah, the opposite, where the game does not send you along, can be worse.
Yeah.
So that's one thing about it. And then when you're doing the lawyer part, there's this really interesting, I thought it was pretty interesting, like, demand of the player, okay, how much are you actually paying attention to what's been said and what people have done and the surroundings you're in? Because you're going to have to check people on their lies in court. And really, it's going to test your, reading comprehension.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about it was, so you'd get a pop-up here and there that just let you know when you can object.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like every time that pops up, that means, yes, there is something to object to here. Sometimes objecting is the wrong call. Sometimes they're just, like, right.
Yeah, or, like, it'll say, one of the witnesses will say, no, I was there, it was Christmas. And then it'll say, do you believe him? And then we can say, no. And then it'll say, why don't you believe him? And you'll need to remember, like, a specific occurrence saying, like, yeah, the New Year had just happened from, like, 20 minutes prior. And, like, well, if the New Year had just happened, it wasn't Christmas.
I caught you.
I caught you in a lie, bub.
Yeah, and you have a transcript in the upper left that can let you... It lets you look back at just, like, all of the dialogue so far. So you can...
Yeah.
But sometimes that's a lot to go through. Like, I think you got up to, like, 11 pages sometimes. That's a lot of transcripts.
It goes back far. It's the whole episode is in there. And that can be over an hour of transcript. Mostly just people talking. So that's a lot to read over. And the pages are long. But you do have access to it. So if you're reading back, like, okay, did he say it was after New Year's? I don't know. then you can go back for that. So that's cool. I think that's a pretty interesting thing. Now on stream, I think we complained about it a good amount of times because we weren't smart enough for it. Let's call a spade a spade. We weren't smart enough for it.
Yeah.
We were very tired by the end of the 7th episode, i.e. the 9th hour of doing it.
Got a lot harder.
It did get quite a bit harder. It also just got harder because the game gets a little harder as you go on.
Right.
But yeah, dude.
Maybe we would have done
ready for that.
Maybe we would have done better if we weren't marathoning the whole season. Like if we did these like one a week, maybe we would have been better lawyers.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like, who's to say?
Yeah. But I thought it was cool. I thought it was actually kind of cool that it was asking us to remember this stuff. Now, that's really the only challenging thing the game had. There's no, like, adventure game stuff here. There's no
QTEs.
No QTEs to do, no choices, like Walking Dead-style choices to make. It's all just kind of in there.
Yeah.
It's all just sort of in the game. So if you're feeling like, oh, this sounds cool, remember what we said a moment ago. You can't play this, but
yeah, sorry.
But we did stream it all on my Twitch channel. So if you go to twitch.tv/thewolfFM, that's TheWolfeFM, the 9-hour broadcast should be saved as a highlight. So
Doesn't that sound enticing?
yeah, you can go watch that. Uh, yeah. Here's one more cool thing before I want to talk about each episode soon. So we give each one their due. Because they did release episodically. It's not like Jurassic Park or CSI where they all released it once, so we just covered them at once. We kind of are covering them all here because I feel like there is, at the core of it, only one thing to talk about.
Right, yeah.
But one cool thing is that the episodes jump back and forth between present day, 2011, and 13 years prior, in or like around 11 years prior, like depending on the episode it jumps back to. So you've got this like Y2K era Law and Order and the 20 teens era Law and Order. You're jumping between them because there's this at the end, episodes 6 and 7 are about one story that has relevant things happen in the old time and the new time.
Yeah, I think that's a fun. I think it's interesting.
It took me a while to realize it was happening.
Yeah, exactly.
It took me like 3 episodes.
What's happening here?
Yeah, and Cameron in the chat, I don't know if he understood how instrumental he was. I would not have realized what was happening if he wasn't going like, well, yeah, so if Ray Curtis is with Olivia Benson in this time period, well, that means Briscoe is dead. And I'm like, why is Briscoe dead? I'm like, well, Briscoe died in the mid-2000s. I don't know.
What did Briscoe do to deserve this?
I guess he died. Yeah, so there's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 episodes in the past and then 4 in the modern era.
Yeah. Yes. It's episodes 1, 3, 5, and 7 are in 2011, and 2, 4, and 6 are in 99, 2000 area. Cool.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I think that's just an interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. Dustin, how should we tackle this?
That's a good question. I guess
it's a bit loaded of a question.
Yeah, I guess we should start. It would make sense to start with the first episode.
Okay, you're right. True. The first episode is episode 1, Revenge, and the whole vibe of the case is a maid at this hotel was murdered.
Yes, Rachel Trevino.
Nice. Good. So Rachel Trevino was murdered. And through talking to like 40 different people, you eventually get to learn that it was probably this Russian ambassador who's in town for a momentary amount of time. And he's claiming diplomatic immunity so he can just kill all the maids he wants, I suppose.
Yeah, I can just do that.
Yeah, I don't know if diplomatic immunity lets you just do everything.
Well, remember, he only had like partial diplomatic immunity.
Well, even if he had full diplomatic immunity, I don't think you should let them just kill people. Probably.
Yeah, that seems like you can't just let them do whatever they want. Still.
Yeah. Well, so this ended up being talked about during the court scene, where he was like, well, I have diplomatic immunity. And then our lawyer says, well, first off, diplomatic immunity might not work how you think it does. And also, you seem to only have partial diplomatic immunity with things related to your mission abroad. And there was a lot of discussion of like, okay, well, is this related or not? On paper. And then Rachel Trevino's dad was there in the courtroom. He just shoots the Russian guy right then and there.
Yeah, the whole case gets turned topsy-turvy.
Yeah, and his thing was, well, he's going around, he's raping people, like just raping people everywhere he goes, and that's actually what Rachel Trevino was going to write. She wrote a blog about it, and she was one of the people who was. and so she's trying to expose him, and so he kills her for exposing him.
Right.
So like this is a terrible guy, and the bereaved father of the deceased is there. He can take it into his own hands when the courts might have a problem with the diplomatic immunity thing. So he takes care of that and shoots him. And then now we hate that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
I mean, it's tricky because this guy sucked so bad, but also if you just come in, you should not be allowed to come into a court and shoot someone, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's also like a bad thing to have happen.
Yeah, probably. It immediately makes the player like, okay, you're on the side of taking down this dad, right? Like, I don't care about this dad. This seems bad.
Yeah. Like, I get where this guy is coming from.
Yeah, in terms of what I'm paying attention to as a lawyer, I think I've got other things to do than this guy first, right? And like, and the game's rhetoric was like, no, we can't have people just disobeying the laws of court. This is important. We need to set this guy down the river. We need to lock him up forever. So that's what the law part of this episode really is. You're actually going against Chav Trevino is his name, I think.
That sounds right. I just wrote down Mr. Trevino. I probably should have written down a first name.
So the dad is Chav, and then like the brother of the deceased also is Mickey Trevino. He's important later.
Right.
Anyway, we locked him up. We locked him up good.
Yeah, he was in the wrong. Mickey Trevino brought the gun for his dad.
Yeah.
So not great, Mickey, but it's a tricky situation.
There's also a moment where you're asked if you want to make a plea deal, and you kind of just can. You're like, well, let's do this lighter sentence, but we'll get him to say he's guilty right now, rather than go through the whole rigmarole and possibly lose, which we did once. We lost once.
Yeah, and I still don't know if it's possible to win that case or not. But
I think it is, and we messed up.
I don't know how we messed up. We'll get to that. That's a later.
That's
case,
episode 4. But yeah, you can take this plea deal, and like your lawyer boss friend person, McCoy. His name's McCoy. He's a show character. He's saying like, I want murder 1, which is first degree murder. I want murder 1 for this guy. He went into my court and was mean, so I want more murder 1. So like you can work on the plea deal because they're going to say like manslaughter in the second degree is their negotiating tactic. So then you can say like, well, maybe murder second degree or maybe manslaughter first degree, or try to move it up a little bit. And we said no deal because we thought we could get him for murder first degree.
Yeah. Do you think in retrospect you would have tried to get this guy a lighter sentence?
The game says not to.
But then
the game has decided that for all of these people, the maximum possible sentence is best, which is crazy. But that is what the game has decided that it wants to do.
Yeah, but going forward, we did do some of the plea deals.
Yeah, but that was we weren't always doing well.
Right.
We weren't always doing well in court.
Right, that's true. I think for the most part we did pretty good overall, though.
Yeah, I think so. We can feel good about it.
Yeah. We can feel good about putting these people in the slammer.
So we gave that guy murder 1, and it took that's basically this episode. But at the end, there's a little stinger. There's a little stinger, Dustin,
Woo!
where the lawyers the detectives are talking amongst themselves, and they're like, hey, that gun that Mickey Trevino, the dad Trevino used, that gun, guess what it was also used for? The preppy joggers murder. And
not the preppy joggers murder.
Dustin, the very same. They start building up this lore of this murder from way back in the day, the preppy joggers that had been unsolved up till present day.
Right.
And that ends up being the subject of episodes 6 and 7, way down the line. So in episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're just given like little bits of like, oh, hey, Allison, how are you? You're looking so much better now that you're not almost being killed in a park. Like just little hints that like one day we're going to talk about this preppy joggers case.
Right. In this way, it is very CSI.
That's a very CSI move. Although CSI is more like it comes together at the end. This is more like we're pushing towards something, which I like more. I think this is better.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. What is weird though is that like, I guess we're skipping ahead a little bit to talk about this, but the cases in 6 and 7 are not the preppy joggers case. They're like after effects where we find out what happened, but like they're about other things. So this murder that everyone talks about, we never see it. The original court case, we never try it. It's other things afterwards. So we're like kind of in a constant state of just knowing this one case happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that first episode, that was Detective Ray Curtis and Olivia Benson. Olivia Benson, by the way, is from Law & Order SVU, the spin-off show. So because she's like a fan favorite, I guess they brought her in, and then it became more of a different eras of Law & Order coming together kind of thing.
Right, kind of the best of collection.
Best of, except for like one main guy, I guess.
Right.
Who Cameron talked about, and I looked him up, and of course, like, yeah, that was immediately apparent that main guy is not in there. I recognized him immediately. But I'm missing the name again now. I gotta look this up. What's that guy's name?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness gracious. No. Oh no.
And I didn't look this guy up at all, so just imagine the position I'm in right now.
Oh no. Okay. Wait. There's a sequel show. There's a sequel show, Law and Order, like organized crime, that's currently running. And it stars Christopher Maloney. Christopher Maloney plays Elliot Stabler, who is, I think, maybe one of the most standout Law and Order characters. It's the only character that once I saw a picture of this guy, I was like, oh yeah, I recognize him from off of Law and Order. He's not in the game, and I guess he like left for 1 or 2 years, a very small amount of time, and then came back to the franchise. And that amount of time was when this game came out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I recognize him from not being in this game.
Yeah, his presence is unfelt in a way that you feel.
That, you know what? I was going to say exactly that.
Yeah. So how do you feel about episode 1?
It was fine. I feel like... like I said, I feel like the cases get better as they go, and this one we were kind of easing ourselves into it a bit. We weren't sure what we were going to be doing, so a little more apprehensive towards it, but I think it was fine overall.
Yeah, so it's definitely built to like ease you into it, but I think both of them are like, or sorry, this episode is definitely one of the ones that I think you could have cut and then move the tutorialization of all the processes into a later episode.
Yeah, I get you.
The hotel maid murder thing, it doesn't work. And like the fact that this one gun was used in this other case that we also don't know about at this time period makes me think like, okay, well, this could have been any gun or any knife. You know,
this could have been any gun in the series.
So episode 2, Home to Roost, came out at the same day. So this was a 1-2 punch, 2 episodes at once. And this is in the past. This is a 1999 episode.
Yeah, now you got Lenny Briscoe.
Yeah, so this is like the modern day Ray Curtis is old, but this is a Ray Curtis who's pretty new on the job, and he's partnered with Lenny Briscoe, who at the time that this episode like this at this time in the show's history, Lenny Briscoe was I guess one of the more important guys.
Right.
And he's fun. I like this guy. I like Briscoe.
He's got all the lines. He's got all the little quips.
Yeah, this guy can't stop quipping. He's only quips.
even at pretty inappropriate moments, I would say.
Yeah. We also do find out that the Preppy Joggers case was Briscoe's. Like, it was his personal project. And he was emotionally connected to the case as well. Like, he helped out with, like, legalese stuff, I guess. One of the two victims, the surviving victim of the Preppy Joggers case. But other than that, we don't get any of that this episode. This is wow, Wikipedia is not helping me out. The description on Wikipedia is, in 1999, Ray Curtis and Lenny Briscoe investigate when a body is discovered with a gash on the thigh.
Yeah, well, a gash on the thigh is maybe underselling it. It's the one with the wife opens the door and her husband is like covered in blood.
Right, Home to Roost. It's a chicken thing. Yeah. He's covered in blood, and some of it is not chickens. Human. It's chicken blood.
Yeah.
What a thing. I also think this one could have been cut. I think these first two episodes could have been cut.
I thought this one was kind of fun, though. I liked the chicken theme.
Yeah, if I were to cut one old one and one new one, I think it would be the first two episodes, or one old time period one and one new time period one.
I agree. I do think I preferred this one to the first one, though. It's just a little more fun.
I agree. I think that the first one is probably the weakest episode in the whole series.
Yeah, but even then, I wouldn't say it was like awful or anything.
No, it's just pretty boring. And this one, I think this one's problem was it went on a little too long.
Was this the longest one? I remember one of them.
I think the first one was the longest one, and whatever is the first one is going to have all the tutorialization and stuff. So
right,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dustin, what you got for notes? Because I was in the driver's seat, and Dustin was taking notes. What you got for notes for this one?
Remember Nanny?
There is a nanny. Yes.
Yeah, she had a Harley Quinn ass voice.
She had a very Mr. J Wiccan sort of pudding voice. We loved that, and she was Wiccan. That was a fun sort of throwaway idea that they didn't come back to.
Yeah,
she just was that.
It made me think it was going to be a little more important to the episode, but no, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's inclusivity right there. Sometimes it doesn't matter. She just is that.
Yeah, so it was Neil Jensen who died.
Neil Jensen. So Neil Jensen had a very silly death.
Yes.
Like a year or two ago, he was tasked with, because him and his wife were raising 4 hens, but one of them turned out to be a rooster, because it's hard to tell the sex of a chick when they're very young. So because the wife had grown emotionally attached to the rooster, she's like, I can't kill this rooster. You have to take it to some sort of farm or something. But they're in New York City, so it's a very long drive, and he had to take like public transportation. So he's not bringing this whole rooster places.
No way.
He goes down the street and asks a local butcher shop if they do cockfights in the back, and they do.
Of course they do.
So he's like, oh, this is so much better than me taking this rooster on the bus. This will be we'll cockfight with this rooster. It's going to be so much easier.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, and then, so later on, he gets killed by the rooster. Yeah.
Yeah, El Jefe.
El Jefe.
The whole time I wanted them to bring him up to the stand, but they never did.
Yeah, they never brought the rooster to the stand because the rooster is dead.
Right, that's a good reason.
It's in the trash can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just threw away the whole rooster. Like this is a very CSI-esque like premise for an episode. It's really the only one that I think in the premise of it felt like those CSI level kind of stories.
Yeah, but it felt like one of the better, sillier ones.
Yeah, the Boogie Foot
Yeah.
tier ones.
Boogiefoot.
Yeah.
He has two of them.
Yeah, he's like a Sasquatch and also a boogeyman. Yeah, so you bring up his like cockfighting partner on the stage because I guess he just sort of watched him bleed out.
That's so ridiculous. He just sat there and was like, whoa.
Yeah, he sat there and watched him bleed out for like 2 hours.
That sucks, man.
Yeah, and then when they asked him why he did that, he was like, I don't know, I was nervous.
I just didn't want to deal with it.
You know what? That's a fair gross negligence charge.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think that we did give him a plea deal because we were like, okay, this is gross negligence. I'm not going to try to say it's murder, you know?
Yeah, this obviously is not as bad as you thought it was. And it felt like the episode went by a lot faster once we took that deal. They were just like, all right, we came to an agreement.
We took the deal and we're like, maybe we should just take the deal every time. This
we
ends
decided
the episode
against
very
it.
quickly.
We decided we put a little more effort into it than that, but this one time we were like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, I think there were a few opportunities for us to take to really cut corners, and we didn't do it.
Yeah, I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I'm proud of us. We took the plea deal when it made sense to do, and no other times. Even though we knew it could shave off like 15 minutes sometimes, like a
Which
lot.
is great when you're doing a stream of all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else with this one?
Not really, but his partner's name was Ricardo Guzman.
Thank you.
Just thought I'd throw his name in there.
Yeah, that did not come up later on. Mickey Trevino, the brother from the first episode, he did come up later on in episode 7, I think.
Right.
Yeah, you never know what's going to be important. That one wasn't. Yeah. I guess this was just to establish that we are going back in time to the Briscoe era of Law and Order, and we are. There was another scene with Allison at the end of this episode. Allison from the Preppy Joggers case.
Right,
where she has a baby now, and she's like, "I was pregnant during the Preppy Joggers shooting. This is a baby," and Briscoe goes, "Oh, so good." Even though she's like a teen mom, and like I don't know how we feel about this whole thing, where now she doesn't seem to have any family, or the father of the baby was killed in the murder. But
yeah, actually, probably not a great situation.
Yeah, but I'm glad they're healthy. Episode 3 is Killer Smart.
Why is it called that?
Because the killer is dumb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a real inversion of expectations here.
Yeah, they really flipped the script.
Yeah, so this potential trigger warning just for this podcast and talking about it. These people raped and killed so many prostitutes. This is the idea of the fact that we're going from a guy who didn't get help fast enough, and that's the crime when his partner was killed by a rooster, to two people who are working in tandem to rape and murder countless prostitutes. Definitely, by a lot, makes this feel like a huge increase in stakes, like enormous increase. I guess that's how the show is. Sometimes it's silly and sometimes you got this going on. But yeah, this definitely, this is serious.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they can't all be cockfighting roosters.
Yeah. Also, we get new show character Mike Logan to consult with us on this one.
Yeah, he's not there for like a long time, but he shows up.
Yeah, he's really not there for that long. We do see a lot of. We get to interview some sex workers and talk to a pimp named Bankroll. And we love talking to Bankroll.
Yeah,
that was good. And
he was pretty good.
It all led to this pairing of people. One is like a very well-to-do socialite, and the other is his like gardener person. And it turns out what they do is the gardener person tries to rape these sex workers, and then the socialites thing is murder. So he's whenever the gardener's done, the socialites like, well, we can't let anyone find out about it, and
Right.
that's that whole thing. So you do take him down, and the I guess the twist, if you can call it that, with this episode is that they try to represent themselves.
Yeah, it's like it for doing such horrible things. They sure try to make these guys into like a comedy routine.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about these guys, because you're starting to feel bad for the gardener one, and then you remember like, wait.
Hold on, this is not
Hold
a
on.
guy you should feel bad for.
This guy, while not the murder one, was the rape one,
Yeah.
and that is at least the second worst thing in the episode.
Yeah.
At least.
So you have to try to get so they're representing each other.
Yeah.
You have to try to get them to turn on each other.
Yeah, because you realize what's happening is that the smarter, well-to-do socialite person, he is like purposefully tanking the case into needing a plea deal, and he's doing that in order for the results of this case to all be against this gardener of his who he's kind of selling down the river.
Right.
And him, like he's gonna get some like probation, but he'll mostly be off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know that like he's the real like worst person. They're both terrible people, but he's a very dangerous person. Probably the worst of the two. So you need to not let that happen. That's the law thing there.
Right. He's also the smarter of the two, so he's got this whole scheme all figured out.
Yeah, I guess Killer smart, but the rape gardener one dumb was like too long of a title.
That's true. That might not be marketable.
Not marketable. I mean, the game turned out not to be marketable, so
That's true.
yeah. A bummer of an episode, but I will say, like, a fairly gripping one. The stakes were quite high. I thought that the thing with the courts was interesting. That probably would not have been a good first episode. So if we cut episodes 1 and 2, we'd have to move the other ones around. Because
Yeah,
I
I
don't think
agree.
you want this first. I think episode 5, Ear Witness, should have been episode 1. But we'll get to it.
I agree that one's a little lower stakes. This episode did have a very good back and forth though with the judge. Do you remember?
No.
So the judge, whose name I did not write down, said, "I suggest we take a recess so your lawyer can explain this to you." And then Patty Jackson, who's the rapist gardener, says, "But I'm my lawyer." And the judge says, "Yep."
Yeah. Yeah, you shouldn't represent yourself in court, I suppose. That's the takeaway here. You shouldn't do any of the other things they did either. And there's a lot of takeaways here.
Right, that's probably like lower on the list of things you should not do that they did.
Yeah, so I believe we got them both for first degree murder.
Yeah, I think we did a good job.
Yeah, good. Like, they did it. So
Yeah.
and other stuff too. I think that we got those counts as well, but at the very least they are in prison for murder first degree. So
Yeah.
that's good. So next we got episode 4, Nobody's Child. I think I said this was my favorite.
It was pretty good. This is when the cases started getting more gripping, I think.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, the combination of episodes 6 and 7 with the preppy joggers case is the best thing in it. But like outside of that, I do like the concept of this one a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you got in your notes?
A dead kid found in the alley.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So there is a child who has been killed.
Yes.
Aaron Bauer. That was his name, right? Yeah, Aaron Bauer.
Sounds right.
So his body is found, and it's this was New Year's Eve, right?
This was New Year's Eve, and importantly, New Year's Eve 1999. So it was the big New Year's. By the way, Dustin, do you remember what you were doing New Year's going into 2000?
Yes, actually.
What were you doing?
I was playing Nicktoons Racing on the PC.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was, because, my family had, some friends of the family over. They were all talking, but the kids were just kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Everyone was still up for it. I just remember that's what I was doing, and then it became the year 2000.
Yeah, you want to know what I was doing?
What were you doing?
I was asleep. I had been awake for previous New Year's, but for whatever reason, my parents decided, it's not that important. And
don't worry about this one.
I've been a little upset about it for the past 23 years. I've definitely carried a little bit of okay.
You have a chip on your shoulder?
The fact that we're alive at this time is wild, right? You understand why this is a big one? Come on, guys. Keep me up for this. Why?
Yeah, Mitchell, you missed the whole Y2K.
Because I woke up at 1 a.m. and I saw fireworks going outside, and I checked the clock and I'm like, what? How could this have happened?
I was not conscious for the new millennium.
Yeah, I'm a little upset about it for sure. The fact that I lived through one of the biggest calendar changes, that really one of the two big ones we've ever had.
Yeah, here's some good news, Mitchell. As this episode has proven to us, you could have had a worse New Year's.
That's true. Yeah, because I was only 5 at the time. But this 12-year-old had it way worse, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. This 12-year-old had blunt force trauma all over the body. He was discovered by a homeless person who turned out to be a big red herring and was not related to the case.
Yeah, he never comes back. You think he's going to be a big factor? That's right? He didn't come back for the whole case?
He didn't come back for the whole case. The reason he was there was because he was a conspiracy theorist about the Y2K bug, which I actually hold close to my chest, was not a conspiracy. It was a real problem. It was a real actual problem with a lot of computer software. And like many other problems that are later regarded as hoaxes, but aren't, it was just solved by a lot of very hardworking, talented people tackling an important problem, working together. Where a lot of software was just not going to roll over to the right date correctly, and it was going to crash. That was true, and then the software got fixed before it happened, so it was okay.
Good for them.
Good for them, right? It's also the same thing with the hole in the ozone layer. The reason you don't hear about the hole in the ozone layer anymore, it's not because it was fake, it's because we fixed it. We had a lot of updates to our aerosols and our chemical outputs that were tearing a hole in the ozone layer, and now we simply don't have the hole anymore.
We fixed it. You and I did a good job.
We did. It was me. I fixed it, and no one... people are saying I guess I didn't have to worry about it. No, you did, because that made me fix it. I fixed it.
That's so interesting that I said we fixed it, and then you decided to say it was all you.
Yep. That's the way the podcast goes.
That's awesome. You know what the shittiest part about that is I have no way to disprove it.
Yeah, no, it was me though. So this child turned out to belong to a child protective services agency that was not affiliated with the municipality of New York. It was a private agency.
Right.
And that turned out to be important. And their whole thing... it's led by this thought leader who's published books on the thing. Was the first priority is to keep the family intact.
Right, so Dr. Montrose.
even if there's history of abuse or drug use in the family, we're not just going to separate the kid. We're going to work on rebuilding that family. Good in theory. This kid was murdered by being beat by his mom.
Yeah.
So
it did not work out.
It didn't seem to work out here. And that was the crux of this episode. It was like, can we prove that Dr. Montrose, who is on trial for this, is the person responsible for the negligence that led to this child's death? And I thought it was an interesting episode, interesting quandary to tackle.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And it turns out that so if you go by the pattern of episodes before this, you would think that you would be bringing the mom to court for this, but no, she also dies.
Yeah, she dies of an overdose halfway through the episode, so we see her, and then it happens.
So the real case is on Dr. Montrose for negligence. He failed to check in on this family.
Yeah, there was a question of like, how long has it actually been since we've checked in on this family? And it turned out to be months and months and months. And within that time, the apartment became trashed. The mom returned to extreme drug use. The mom returned to beating the son. Everything went downhill. And the agency had just gotten way too many people to take care of. So they were like, okay, we're going to try this early graduation program where some people, we're just going to kind of eyeball it and say, you're good, and we're going to stop visiting them. And that was the negligence that led to the child's death. So we do try him for, I believe it was like manslaughter because of negligence. It's not murder. It's, I think.
Wasn't it just, what it was. Weren't we just charging him for gross negligence though?
Yeah, I think so. I thought it was associated with something else, but you may be right. That was what we tried.
Yeah.
We didn't get it. And I'm thinking it's because we really should have taken the plea deal, and we didn't take it because we were like, well, clearly this guy's in the wrong. But this guy is a very popular public figure. The idea of keeping the family together turned out to be just a positive thing that the public rallied behind.
Right.
So, like, for us to try the maximum of what we were pushing, I think it was just never going to work. We should have tried a plea deal, and at least then we would have gotten him in prison, because he walked out scot-free.
Yeah, which is interesting, because, so, the better you do in these cases, you have a little bar at the top that fills up depending on how much the jury is on your side.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we were doing pretty well in that case. Like, I think we had, like, a pretty full green bar up there. But he still got out of there.
Yeah, I think the jury on your side thing, it's deceptive because, like, it might... It definitely makes it look like that's the thing that matters in getting the jury to vote in your favor. But if, like, I think in the case of Dr. Montrose, and in the case of episode 4, what the game might have been saying was like, the jury's never going to go for what you're doing, but if you get them on your side, you might be able to do a more stern, like a more strict plea deal, something like that.
Right.
So that was the idea there. I liked that episode. We were very confused as to why we did not win the trial at the end, just based on how well we did in the trial. But,
I was, but other than that, I felt like it was a pretty strong story they had.
Okay, so before we head into episode 5, I do want to talk about something that you can check on the stream highlight, because it happened, and it blows my mind. Do you know what I'm about to talk about?
Oh, I know what you're about to talk about.
Okay, when you're sometimes, not all the time, only when people won't believe you. If you're going through the episodes in the menu of the game, sometimes it'll be written out as episode 3 Killer Smart, but with the first capital E in the word episode, it'll have an accent. And I pointed it out to the chat, and I was like, why does that E have an accent? And then I scrolled, and episode 4 was normal, and then episode 5 had an E with an accent.
Yeah, it's very weird, but we got the proof.
And then, like, we played through another episode, and then we came back, the accent was gone.
Never
It was
came
spelled
back.
correctly after that. What kind of bug is that? That's so weird.
That's crazy.
I've never seen a glitch like that in my life. And I
I
work
mean,
on
I'm
drivers.
I'm glad everything else about this game seemed to work fine, given, like, wouldn't it have sucked if this, like, the one game we're streaming, the game that cost, like, way more than it should,
Yeah.
was just buggy as hell. Like, I'm glad it was pretty bug-free for the most part.
I'm glad it had this very weird one bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a bug that brings you joy instead of a bug that ruins your game.
Yeah, it really brings us together and tries to keep the group together.
Yeah, we laughed, we learned, we loved.
Episode 5, Ear Witness. I think this was a...
Before we go into this,
Yeah.
can we take a second to talk about how this game looks?
It looks kind of cool.
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad for something like leagues above the CSI games in ways. So they do this weird thing where the characters, the character models are pretty good.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a cell shaded look to them, and sometimes they don't, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the cell shaded ones are the successful ones.
Right. Yeah. And the backgrounds are, so they're like still images. I assume some of them are even just photos with Photoshop filters over
Yeah,
them.
they look like hard-boiled still images.
Yeah, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I would say overall it worked fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like when you're in the courtroom doing the court stuff, I think that actually really works.
Yeah, because it kind of looks like a court drawing in
yeah.
like the really far away stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's sometimes where you'll be like out in the town finding stuff you need, and it just, like, it looks like character models dropped in front of a flat picture.
Which is what it is. Yeah, like,
yeah.
I think it makes sense considering it was an iOS game from 12 years ago. Like, we're talking about iPad level power. Were they concerned about making full rendered 3D backgrounds? Probably, right? They were probably not going to draw out the whole thing for a non-console, non-PC game, like an iOS thing first. It's got to be lightweight. And the way they did that was, without compromising too much of the look, was they put all of the graphical intensity in the character models and then put them in front of a flat image. I'm sure that they wanted to do more, and this is a stylistic choice given what they could work with. And with that in mind, I think that's pretty cool. But, like, I do agree.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hard-boiled just image, just like picture, like a photograph that they use as a background, it is a little jarring. I kind of thought it was a cool kind of jarring, but it's certainly not immersive. You know, you recognize what it is immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this method, it could have looked a lot worse. I think it surprisingly works a good amount of the time. I think there was only like a couple times where I was like, oh, that doesn't look very good. But overall, given what they were going for, I think they mostly succeed.
Also, Jared Emerson Johnson does a rendition of the main Law & Order theme for this game that we heard so much, and I didn't hate by the end, even though we had heard that one song so much.
Yeah. I agree. It was hard to pick out any other music in this game, though. I'm sure
there was some like atmospheric stuff.
Yeah, it's just, you're just not going to get stuff like Sam and Max, or even Walking Dead. I would say
not that kind of game.
Some, yeah, exactly. But what's there is good.
What's there is good. Yeah. So I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. I scrolled down a little bit, and I'm looking at the reception section. It's quite low. The Metacritic was 53 out of 100. GameSpot reviewed it for a flat 5 out of 10. PAL GN, which I am not familiar with that publication, gave it a 4.5 out of 10, and that's about all they have. That's
Yeah.
the only reception they have.
Yeah, I was looking at that too before we started recording. That's low for a game like this. Like I think it's a little better than that. It's not the most amazing game in the world, but I think what this game sets out to do, it does it pretty competently, I'd say.
I'm conflicted about it because on the one hand, I don't think it's that wrong of a score. It's just that I know what other things get. Like CSI should probably have a way worse score then, and it
Right.
actually usually doesn't.
I guess
like, this
because
is not the
you're
worst thing that Telltale put out.
yeah, maybe it's just because in CSI you're doing more, you're a little more hands-on with
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah, like I think
Like-
this is a better game than Telltale Texas Hold'em, but then like if I look at what Telltale Texas Hold'em is, it's not trying to be much, and in terms of accomplishing the goal, Texas Hold'em does it 100% of the way, whereas this like maybe comes a little bit further from accomplishing the goal just because the goal is so much more lofty.
Right.
So like I don't know how to do it. I think this is a better game than certainly all 4 CSI games, and some of the other stuff we've played too.
Where do you think you would put it in that, like, other than CSI?
What else is
Like-
it better than?
Yeah.
Um,
I know you're not super into Minecraft. Would you say it's better than Minecraft Season 1?
no, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
Maybe if it was just that first half of Minecraft Season 1, it would be like on that level.
I gotcha. But Minecraft kind of redeems itself.
Yeah, Minecraft gets more interesting as it goes.
Yeah. To be fair, I think so does this.
Yeah, so does this.
It-
I like there was someone in the chat that said like, is this as bad as Game of Thrones and Back to the Future? And we had to like come in and be like, dude, Game of Thrones and Back to the Future are like full like games.
Yeah.
It is not as good as those two.
But at the same time, it is a much smaller game, too.
It's probably a much smoother game than Back to the Future as well.
Yeah.
So like it depends on what you come in for. Like New Tales from the Borderlands was like a real negative experience. So I think I'd put it below this.
I think that's fair.
Like this comes in real smooth. A fairly neutral experience, especially when we were like comparing it to the CSI games. I think we had an idea for how this would go, and it went like much smoother than that. I'm saying smooth instead of good because it's just coming in like it's not going to be offensive. It's not going to be like offensively designed. You play through it, and then you have played it, and there were some interesting things in there.
Yeah, I think expectations for it were pretty low, at least for me. So the fact that it just wasn't awful made me a lot more positive on it. But just like as a game, you know, it is pretty simple. It does have some interesting stuff in there, but it's hard to say it's like this great, amazing game that people should play.
Yeah.
But
okay. So out of everything we've covered, better than the 4 CSI games.
Better than Jurassic Park, would you say?
Yes, better than Jurassic Park. Thank you for
agree.
reminding me that game exists. And I would say better than New Tales from the Borderlands.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's better than the 3 Poker Night games or the 3 poker games, just because those are kind of just all that they are. They're toys. They're fun little toys, but like this is a thing. This is.
See, that's tough for me because I get so much out of those. Like, I really like those poker. They are just poker games, but I really like, you know, hearing the characters shoot the shit. I just, it's a game that I would rather be in. A game I would rather play.
I would say at least Telltale Texas Hold'em. The 2 poker night
definitely.
games.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, they have a lot of personality in them.
Oh, what about Bone?
Yeah, I would say it's better than Bone. I don't know how you would feel about that.
I don't know how I feel about that. Because I really think just what I was expecting with this game is maybe kind of messing with how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here like, oh yeah, no, this game was surprisingly
this is my favorite
not
video
bad.
game.
This is the best game. Yeah, it's actually better than anything else we've played on this show.
Or off of it. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, you have Law and Order.
No, but I do think like Bone has a lot of drop balls, and I don't think this does. This had a story it wanted to tell, and it came in and it did it.
Yeah. But it's tough because like I prefer what Bone is over this. Like I thought this game was good, but I don't give a shit about Law and Order.
Well, you know what really makes me feel that way about it is
what?
The Expanse.
Oh.
So like I think The Expanse is better than this, but I think it's close, and that's probably where I'm gonna put it.
Okay, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you would put The
even
Expanse above this?
Maybe like a pinch.
It has a lot in common, actually, in a weird way.
Yeah, because but The Expanse, I was not that interested, and I came out of it, and I was like, yeah, I was not that interested, and I didn't care about it that much. But Law and Order, I was expecting to be way worse, and then I came out and I was like, oh no, actually, that was not that bad. So I feel like I was more positive on Law and Order, even if it's not like The Expanse is a game.
Yeah.
This is like it counts as a game, but it's not as much of a game as The Expanse is.
Yeah, you really get a perception about like how we've talked about things when we were watching the chat go by on Twitch, and they're like, "Is this the worst thing you've ever played for the podcast?" And like, dude, no, not even.
No, not
close.
even close. There's way worse.
Yeah, this has some stuff. I know it looks boring to you, but we're in it. Like,
yeah,
we're in this world. We know our Telltale games pretty well. There's some stuff.
This
going
isn't
on
our
here.
first rodeo.
Not even close to our first rodeo.
Yeah, I feel like I would be a little more positive than these reviews. I haven't read these reviews, but I feel like my opinion on what I got out of this game that I had no desire to play, I would be a little more positive.
Yeah, again, I'm conflicted just because like I see 5 out of 10, and I'm thinking about the way we're talking about it on this podcast, and I'm like, well, that seems low. But then I remember I just played a game I did not like, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, which is, I think, if I were to go to bat for it, I would say it's the second most boring Mario game, behind New Super Mario Bros. 2.
Mitchell letting it all out.
And like, I just played through that yesterday, and remembering what that game is, I'm like, oh well, that's a 7 out of 10. So this is worse. Like, so yeah, 5 out of 10 in the scope of what video games are. Actually sounds pretty right. Yeah,
right. It's complicated.
But you know,
that's
if
what
you've been
the
following
Facebook
this
says.
podcast up to this point, I think you have enough context to know what we mean.
Yeah.
How about episode 5, Ear Witness?
Boy, this one starts off on a pretty high note.
It starts off on a real strong note. Yeah, we're in the dark, and there's like flashes of it looks like a visual reference for echolocation almost, which is not a power that humans have, but we are made aware of the fact that we are in the perspective of a blind child walking with their mother. The mother is gunned down in a gang related skirmish.
Yeah.
But because the child is blind, we have a lot of auditory evidence that the child saw, but nothing hard and nothing visual. We can't point to anyone and say it was this person, even though there was this ear witness at the scene of the crime. I think our chat loved this episode.
Yeah. I thought this one was good. I had a good time with this one. It helps the stakes are, like, I don't want to say the stakes are lower, like a person is still dead.
Right.
But it's not as, like, heavy as people who rape and kill prostitutes.
I would agree. I would agree with that. The okay. So I think the general like cool thing about this episode is that there's this blind child who has extremely good memory for details and extremely good hearing, but just couldn't have seen it happen. So you're getting a lot of information, and it's usable. Like the kid can point to where on the street something like where the gunshot came from, or what people were saying, even though they were kind of far away before the event happened. His memory was great. But like people weren't your opposition in court was trying to throw out this kid's testimony because he couldn't have seen it happen. But we have to argue for the fact that like there's a lot of great studies that say that people who have been blind since birth really can have much better hearing than other people. We should use this, and we ended up successfully being able to use it. I bet you can't I bet there is a method in which you deny yourself that option.
Right. But we got him. We got little Henry Jackson up on the stand.
Yep. So I think where this episode falls apart a little bit for me was that it turns out that the murderer was this guy in a car who was like camping out waiting for one of the gangsters there, who just sort of walks up slowly and tries to shoot one of the gangsters because he had this wife who was killed by the gangster, but he like as he's walking up just misses and shoots the mom instead. And like the way this comes together doesn't make a lot of sense to me. When you figure out what happened, it's kind of like, oh, is that what happened? All right. Yeah.
I get you. Isn't this the case where, like, so you see the flashback at the beginning that your character is not there for, but then you have to rely on knowledge that they could have only had if they were there?
Yeah, we have to, like, answer questions as the player. I guess not the detective, to the game's credit. The player of, like, what do we remember from this flashback?
Right.
And that didn't seem fair. That's a flashback of another
narratively
character.
Yeah, narratively it didn't make sense. Like as the player playing it, it's fine since you did see it, but for the story they're telling, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I
that's
still
the
liked
episode.
it.
Yeah, I liked it enough. We get through it. The killer is very sorry to the kid. It was an honest mistake.
Anyone
he just
could have
tried
done
to
it.
kill a gangster.
Yeah, sorry, kid.
Mm-hmm. There's also like a weird white power guy in this episode who tries unsuccessfully to be white power.
Yeah, David Zemsa. He makes videos online where he's just kind of casually a white supremacist.
Yeah, he has like the same tone as like a DIY crafts person on YouTube. Like, well, here's one thing you can do.
So today we're gonna start a race war between these guys.
One thing you could do is you can find out if one of them died recently, and you can spray paint their name on a wall, and then in a different color spray paint, you can cross over it, so it looks like the rival gang did that. Like,
it's
okay,
so
dude. How fun.
Yeah, this guy sucks. He's
He
very
really
bad.
sucks. Yeah.
But we also get a great character with Tarvarius Sims.
Tarvarius Sims was the gangster that killed the killer's wife, I suppose.
Yeah, but, he feels really bad about the kid. He had some funny lines in there.
Mm-hmm.
Killing people's wives is not good, but he was a charming character.
You said it, Dustin. Anything else this episode?
Well, so the killer's name is Scott Leonard.
Right.
Do you remember what alcohol he was drinking?
The Mad Scotsman. Because he's mad, and his
I'm
name
a
is
mad
also
Scot, man.
Yeah. Great.
Pretty good writing.
Yeah, I try to drink mostly wolf-themed beverages for the same reason.
Yeah, it's hard when your name is Dustin.
Yeah, you try to drink dusty beverages for the same reason.
This doesn't taste great.
Dusty Jack and Coke.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Except for all the dust.
Except for all the... Yeah, you could have had a new one.
Yeah, it's actually not great.
Okay, episodes 6 and 7 are actually about the preppy jogger case. So we're finally going back to him. Episode 6 is one of the old-timey ones. And this is, what is it, like a year after the preppy jogger murder?
I think so. I think that's right.
Yeah. This episode is also this one specifically is also a contender for favorite episode in the series. I thought it was, there was a lot of intrigue. I was kept interested the whole time. Good job, game.
Yeah, it had some interesting characters like Mrs. Vanderhoek.
Yeah, Mrs. Vanderhoek was in it.
She was a real... Whoever was playing her was doing a real performance.
Yeah, she had fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, there was this very dickish boy, just a real bully jerk of a guy named Tag with 2 G's.
Tag with 2 G's.
Were you about to say 2 G's before I said 2 G's?
I was, and I said it a second after.
Why did we zoom in on that?
Because
why did we both care about that?
I've just never seen that name on a person before.
It is interesting. Yeah, so we had Tag with 2 G's. He was murdered in his school. And there was just so many things about this episode that we had to learn about the preppy joggers case. He, at one point, was considered a suspect, I guess, of the preppy jogger case because he bullied Harrison, last name.
Harrison Bedford.
Bedford, the Bedfords. Yeah, he bullied Harrison Bedford, who died in this murder. And Harrison's girlfriend, Allison, last name.
Conway.
Conway. So he bullied them both. Then they were shot down in the park. Allison got better. It went through her skull, but she lived. Harrison died.
Yeah, he did not get better.
Yeah, so this is an unrelated murder, kind of, though. Dustin, what kind of notes do you have here?
So, if you remember, Tag was saying that her baby was his.
Yes. Because
That's not cool.
Tag actually sexually assaulted and possibly raped. They kept it a little vague. Allison
I think,
Conway.
Yeah, I think the thing is it was at a party and she was drunk and passed out.
Yeah, I think
and they
that's
recorded
true.
it.
And he recorded it on video.
Yeah.
And Allison actually did not know for sure if it was Tag's baby or Harrison's baby. She hoped it was Harrison, and thank God it was. It turned out not to be possible that it was Tag's baby.
Yeah.
But he's just kept this video around. He's like, I'm going to show it to Franklin Bedford, the brother of the dead guy, who could have been the father. And I'm just going to show it to people for fun. It's just a fun thing to do. And one of the people he showed it to was like the headmistress of the school.
Mrs. Boersma.
Boersma. Really?
Or Boersma. Boersma is probably.
Okay.
Boersma. It's a weird name.
Probably Boersma. Yeah, I mean, they just randomized these names.
Or remember Tag had the metal shoved in his mouth?
Yes. I think that was in order to frame it on Franklin, who was on the golf team, and that metal went to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was the headmistress of the school who did this, who actually killed Tag, because Tag was like, I want you to give me a bunch of money, because I know that you made a deal with my mom to not let this video get out, because she tried to use the video, the headmistress tried to use the video as blackmail against Tag's mom, who's very rich. Tag's mom bought the gymnasium for the school. It's
Yeah.
a nice gymnasium.
Really extorting money out of the Vanderhoeks.
Yeah, so if Tag's mom is giving money to the headmistress, Tag's like, I want some of my mom's money through you. So I'm gonna blackmail you that you tried to blackmail my mom, even though I'm the guy in the video, and I will go to jail if this gets out. I'm gonna just use it to oppress you somehow.
Yeah, he's not very smart.
Yeah, he's not a good person.
Yeah.
So the headmistress shoots him and tries to blame it on Franklin Bedford, the brother who does hate Tag and would have had reason to do it, but did not do it.
Good for Franklin.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, a compelling episode.
A compelling episode. But we still don't know who killed Harrison. And because Tag's dead, I think a lot of people are just content to think, okay, maybe it was Tag. But he's dead now, so we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we find out Harrison is the father at the end.
Yeah, which was good. It's good that's true.
Good for him.
Yeah, because during this time, Allison Conway has been taken in by Giles Bedford, the dad of Harrison and Franklin Bedford. And he's also a very well-to-do person. So he's basically just raising her and her son as his grandson this whole time. So, it's good that Harrison's the real father, because that means that, she has more of a connection to this family anyway, and she feels she belongs there and stuff.
Yeah, which I'm sure will stay that way going into the next episode.
Oops, it won't. So episode 7 is back in the modern era, so it's been over 10 years since that happened.
Right.
Allison has become acting CEO of Giles Bedford's company while Giles is having a medical emergency.
Hey, Mitchell, can I stop you there real fast?
Yeah.
His name is pronounced Giles.
Yeah, but it sucks, right? I actually know that. I know that, and I made a decision because, Giles is
no. I agree
by a lot, right?
I agree. That's what I was thinking during the episode.
That's some kind of Frasier ass naming system.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Okay. Giles. Whatever.
Yeah. It starts with protesters. They think the protesters threw someone over the bridge, but it was a little stunt.
Well, not just any protesters. The protester, in quote, that alerts the police that someone threw someone over the bridge turned out to be Franklin Bedford.
Hey, it's Franklin.
So Franklin from the last episode, he's back, and he's no longer a kid. He's now a real bearded guy.
Yeah, they don't get much bearder than that.
Yeah, he's he dropped out of college, and he's just been sort of a vagrant kind of guy. Really, not what I wanted to hear for Franklin. His life is not good.
Yeah.
So the mannequin that they see, that they try to make it look like a person, has Giles's information on it, and it turns out it was Giles. And it's a plea to the cops to investigate Giles Bedford.
Right. Who Giles Bedford has his own little medical emergency, so he winds up in the hospital.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hospital scenes in this episode. The I guess what it comes down to, if we're to summarize it very quickly, is what if Giles had his own son murdered? Why would he do that? Well, what if he was actually just trying to murder Allison Conway, and Harrison wasn't supposed to be there?
Could you imagine?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, that was the idea. He tried to murder Allison Conway because she was pregnant with his son's son, and she's not well-to-do like the Bedfords are, and it'll ruin Harrison's life and his chances at stuff if this teen mom is attached to them at the hip, and they have to get married at such a young age, and stuff. So why don't we just kill her? Really take her out of it.
The easy way out of this whole situation.
Also, because he's stressed out, he's taking this medicine called Banaxylene, which we are making the extreme stretch to say is a Benang reference.
Benangzaline.
And Banaxylene has a lot of side effects that just makes you out of your mind, a little bit angrier. So in this,
makes you a little crazy, a little angry.
Yeah, in this drug-fueled rage, Giles Bedford hired a hitman to kill his son's girlfriend. And the hitman fails at killing Allison, but does not really accidentally, Giles didn't know Harrison would be there, kill Harrison. And that is what happened. It was the dad the whole time. Franklin knows this, and he's trying to get everyone else to believe it too. And they find some proof via Mickey Tremblay. What's his name? Trevellum.
Mickey Trevino.
Yeah, he gets the proof through Mickey Trevino, who happens to know the hitman that they think did the Preppy Jogger murders, because the gun was connected to him.
Right.
Yeah. So they find it out, and then we put Giles away. Now he is a criminal.
Sorry, Giles.
Yeah.
I forget why, but in my notes I have a hot dog stand.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a really interesting looking hot dog stand in this episode that they just stand in front of at one point.
I think that's why I wrote it. I think that's one of the scenes where I was like, this background style maybe does not always work.
Well, I thought it was funny because they walk in front of the hot dog stand, and we've never really commented on the background in 5 episodes at this point. And we're both like, hot dog stand!
Look at it!
Look at it! It's something. Something changed.
Yeah. So I'm glad we put him away.
Yep, me too.
And then it ends with you talking to Lenny Briscoe at his grave.
Yeah, so it was the Preppy Joggers case was always Lenny Briscoe's special interest case, and we only solve it after he died as Ray Curtis. So it was a touching moment to send back to him. If I knew about any of these characters at all, I might have even felt a way about it.
Yeah, a way.
I turned out to not feel any kind of way about it, but it was I think what the maximum of what they could have done.
Yeah. By this point, boy, that brain fog was setting in. I was just like, it was very hard to make good choices in the court case. Mm-hmm. It was hard to recall what had been said, hard to call out people on their lies. We pulled through, though.
Yeah, we pulled through.
Yeah. And I had a somewhat okay time with the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's
fair to say.
That's what video games are.
Somewhat okay times.
Yeah, really, they all just devolve into somewhat okay times.
It all right.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that we played that. We won't do any more 9-hour Twitch streams. I think we're done with that.
One and done.
And moreover, we're done with any kind of weird one-off anything until we finish the podcast.
Yeah.
Unless there might be a Sam and Max thing.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, depends on how that works.
If you're
out.
good.
If I'm good?
No, if the audience is good.
Oh, if you're good for it, yeah, you can pay us money, and then we'll do anything.
Oh no, I mean if they're on their best behavior.
Oh, okay, they're not. So we won't then. Yeah, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series, next. So that's what we're heading into right after this, and we're just gonna go back to 1 episode per episode. We're gonna do it normal times. Normal style.
Some real vintage telling the tale.
Yeah, what we're the best at, I would argue.
Yeah, what we've become pros in our long journey.
After Guardians of the Galaxy, we're doing Minecraft Story Mode Season 2, I think, is next. Or is it Batman is next?
Doesn't matter.
I think it's Minecraft Story Mode Season 2 after that.
Okay.
And then Batman The Enemy Within. And finally, the final season of both the game and our podcast, Walking Dead the final season.
Ain't that just crazy? It's so within our grasp.
19 episodes across those 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's still gonna be a while. That's still a while off, but like compared to everything we've done,
Yeah.
we're like right at the finish line.
We're really approaching it. Yeah, there's a few other things that we talked about that we can do. I guess we'll just say them here on air.
Okay.
We've thought about possibly covering Sam & Max This Time It's Virtual, which is a virtual reality game. The technology behind virtualities has plagued us for some time now that we haven't been able to figure it out, but there might be developments happening that let at least one of us play that game.
Yeah, we don't want to promise anything, but let's just say it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it might happen, and if we do that, I think we might do that before the end of the actual season. We talked in the past about us playing Escape from Monkey Island as the one Monkey Island game that we've never played, both of us.
Right.
And that would be a good, very special episode. We might do that. It has been requested of us, and it's really the first request we ever got that like we weren't going to do anyway, so I do kind of feel compelled to seriously consider it.
Yeah, we got like a few requests for this, like within like a couple days of each other, just suddenly got brought up by a few people.
Yeah, Hector Red Badge of Carnage, which was a Telltale published game, not Telltale developed. And it was like out of all the Telltale published games, there was a good like little period there where they were publishing things that were developed independently or whatever. This is like an old school LucasArts kind of style point and click adventure game.
Yeah, so even though they didn't develop it, their name is still on it as the publishers, and it does fall in line with other games we've covered on the show, so I think it at least makes more sense than the other games they published to do.
Yeah, and I'm actually reading from the Hector Badge of Carnage Wikipedia page right now, where it says in the development section, it was developed initially for Apple, like iPhone and iPod Touch stuff, by the Strand Looper people who are from Northern Ireland. But in 2011, it was revealed that the trilogy would be published by Telltale Games and released for multiple platforms, and that first episode that was made by the original people was converted to the Telltale tool, the engine, by Telltale's in-house development team. So, like, Telltale did work on it, sort of.
Okay. All right. I think that justifies it.
Yeah, so we'll probably do that too.
Okay.
Yes, but it is like driven, like it's designed and written by other people.
Yeah. Which could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And that was around 2010, 2011. So there's that to look forward to. That's something we may do also. I don't know if we'll do it before we finish it. It might be like between
a
things,
little bonus
after we finish the length of the podcast we want to go, sometime after that, probably, depending on how they're feeling about it, Telltale may release The Wolf Among Us 2.
Yeah, they might just decide not to.
Yeah, and so if the podcast is finished before that game comes out, then we're gonna put some stuff in that gap. But really, the podcast is going to finish at the end of The Walking Dead, the final season. That's going to be the real end, the canon end of the podcast. And it's 19 real canon episodes away.
Yeah, no filler stuff. It's going to be all main story canon going forward.
Yeah,
except for those ones that aren't.
No killer, all spiller. It's just... It's right in there. You can scoop it up with your little cup and take a sup. Have a great summer?
Wait, no. Hold on, Mitchell Wolf.
Okay, what do we need?
I believe you're forgetting our segments.
What's your weekly guy?
I'm giving it to Tarvarius Sims. He had some good laughs. I mean,
Okay.
it's hard to really have a weekly guy for a game so just full of awful people and normal people.
Right. Yeah. Tarvarius Sims is a good one. Mine is going to go to the defense lawyer, and you play as the prosecution, so this is the opposition. The defense lawyer in episode 7, where we're talking. We have Franklin Bedford on the stand, and the defense lawyer is defending Giles Bedford. Almost said Giles. And up to this point, you're given a lot of tools for opposing the opposition lawyer's remarks. So you can say objection, and then you have a lot of tools that you can say your objection for. One of them is badgering, which is just clearly when the lawyer is insulting the witness. You can just say, hey, this is badgering. Stop this.
Stop this right now.
Yeah. And like the opposition lawyer in this case, they turn him up to 12. They turn him up real high. And he's like, so, Franklin, did you ever feel like a little shit when you were disrespectful to your father? And then we objected to it like, objection, that's badgering. And then the judge says, yeah, that's badgering. And then the lawyer says, my apologies, withdrawn. You see, there's nothing worse than a son who is ungrateful. And like he has this really smarmy look on his face when he says that, and we object a second time.
Object again.
We're like, dude,
he's still doing it.
Stop it.
And the judge is just like, come, really?
Yeah, and he's forced to just go like, okay, withdrawn.
Like he didn't just totally shit the bed in court.
Yeah, he's my weekly guy.
That's a good one.
Just the most aggressive, stupid lawyer.
I like that it was kind of paired with, by that point we were 7 cases in, so we knew when to call these people out. So
yeah.
like, we were just like scoring all these points, and this poor asshole was just looking worse and worse by the second.
So what's your golden moment?
So this one I feel a little lame about because I wrote down just any of Lenny Briscoe's little quips and little comments.
They are pretty good, yeah. Do you have a specific one you could pull?
No, that's why I feel so lame about it.
Okay.
I didn't write any of them down, and it's been a couple days, and I don't remember any. But I just remember getting good laughs. I remember there was one case in particular where we were like, Lenny, you have to know this is not the right time for this.
You have to get it, right?
Yeah. I think it was the one with the dead kid in the alley, and we were just like, this is like by far the worst time to make a joke, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were saying, oh, he thinks he's on a different show.
Yeah, he thinks he's on CSI. He thinks he's brass.
Yeah, but he died, so I think he just had to make the most of his cases where he was alive.
Mm-hmm. Dustin, I'm telling you, I'm having a really hard time pulling a golden moment here.
It's tough, isn't it? Because it's like I said with the weekly guy, these are just kind of like normal. It's not like wackiness.
Oh, I have one.
Like Sam and Max. Oh, okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Sometimes they show the jury. They don't do
I know
it
what
very
you're
often.
gonna say. I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Yeah, they don't do it very often, but sometimes they show the jury, and they show the jury like politely sort of nodding to a point that you're making. Like, okay.
But the thing is, it's not a whole jury. It's just one of them.
Yeah,
one
they're
of
not
them
going to
gets
model the whole jury. It's just one guy.
Yeah.
And
so you just narrow in on one guy who just politely nods.
It is my golden moment.
That's good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now we're done. Now we're able to finish.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about? We're good?
No, we handled all the stuff we would be talking about here already.
Okay, well, that's been 7 episodes of Telling the Tale in one podcast. You're welcome. and thank you for listening. Until next time, stay cool in that summer sun. Have a great summer.
Wheel that one back and saved it.